Hello Stampers, my name is Linda Bedinger and I'm an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator, and today I'd like to show you how I made this card. I'm still working with the Share What You Love suite, which is available for order right now, pre-order, and so I'm trying to do 3 or 4 things here that use this suite so you can get some ideas. So this one is a thank you card, and it's got a little bit of decoration on the inside. And let me tell you what you need to make this card. I used a black base, 8.5 by 5.5 scored and folded at 4 1/4. And then I have a piece of this beautiful designer series paper. Look at that pearlized material on the flowers. Isn't it gorgeous? And this one is 5 1/4 by 4, and it's a layering piece here. Then I have a piece of black that is 4 by 2 3/4. Then a piece of this pattern paper out of the same suite that is 2 1/2 by 2 3/4. Is that right? Yep, 2 1/2 by 3 3/4. Then I have a piece of Whisper White that is 2 inches by 3 1/4. Then I have, let's see, I'm missing a piece here, but, oh, there it is. Okay, then I have a small piece of black that is 2 1/2 by about 1 1/8. And this piece is 1 inch by 2 3/8. Then I have a piece for the inside that is 4 3/4 by 3 3/4. And then I have another piece of the designer series paper that is 5 1/4 by 2. And then we have a piece of scrap to do our flowers with. All right, so lots of pieces here. Not a difficult card at all. There's a little bit of fussy cutting. And so let's just get started. This piece can go down on our card front straight away. So I'm just going to do that with a little bit of snail here. Putting that on my card front here and getting a good similar margin all the way around. Now then, these pieces are going to layer together and we're going to do some stamping. So I am using the Share What You Love or Love What You Do. I guess this part is called Love What You Do photopolymer set. And from this set, I am using these flowers here, and let's see, and the thank you, and I think that's it. Yes, these flowers and the thank you is what I'm using from this stamp set. All right, so I'm going to bring in my Pierce mat here and some scratch paper, and the first thing we're going to do, the inks that I'm using are Rich Razzleberry and Crumb Cake. And I am going to do a little bit of color wash with the Crumb Cake here. And let's see, I've got an aqua brush here. Let me just clean the tip a bit here, get rid of the Rich Razzleberry on there, and I'm going to put that on the Crumb Cake and just create a little background wash here on my card. And then I'm going to allow that to dry for a second, and I'm going to put the same kind of color wash on our little piece of white here. There we go. So it's not quite so stark. Okay, so let's see. While we're waiting for that to dry, And that is really all I need the crumb cake ink for. We're going to do some stamping, and maybe now I could do some of the stamping on our piece of extra paper while these two pieces dry just a bit. So I'm using the flower here, and I'm using my Memento Tuxedo Black ink, and I am going to just get a couple of good images of this flower down on my scrap here. That's pretty good. And I'm going to put another set of these flowers. Aren't those pretty? Just so pretty. And I'm going to put another set of those right down here next to it. All right. And so what we're going to do is again use the aqua brush, and we are going to do a little bit of coloring, watercolor kind of coloring on the flowers here. And so what I'm going to do is add some water here to the back of this, and these flowers I'm going to fussy cut out, so I'm not real interested necessarily in staying in the lines. If I go outside, I'm just going to cut them out anyway, so it's not any big problem if I should do that. And I don't want this to be washed out. I want to pick up some of the more intense color here, and I'm doing that by going into the areas that are almost dry on what I've put in my lid here. And again, not worrying too much about that. And then to add just a little extra shading, I'm picking up some of the darker color and just adding a few strokes from the center of the flower out. I do want to make sure that there's not any white showing on this flower. There we go, getting a little bit of shading in there. Now, while that piece dries, I think this is now sufficiently dry, because we didn't put very much water on it, to have this piece come back, and for us to bring back the Memento. I'm just going to move that out of the way because I'm going to need it again here in a minute. And put one image of these flowers on our panel here. And I want that inked up really, really good. I'm not happy with that. Let me pick this up and go this way. See if I can get... Sometimes it feels like it just beads up. I think that will do. And I'm going to put one image of the flower right here on our panel. And I'm just going to let that sit there for a second and let that ink kind of soak in. There we go. Nice image. Okay. So now I'm going to bring back my rich razzleberry, and, well, maybe while that's drying a bit, we'll go ahead and put our thank you together here. Going from one to the other. So back to the Memento. And to get a nice thank you image down on for our sentiment on the card. And this is deceiving. This thank you is actually not very big, but the way the K and the Y go, it makes it, it has to be on a fairly wide piece. I'm going to move it far over to the left and stamp that down. And there we go, nice image. Okay, so I think that's it for the memento, so I can move that out of the way. And the only thing I have left to do on this is I did sort of fishtail this piece of paper to make it look a little bit more like a banner here. So I can do that. These two can be adhered together and that will be all ready to go. I'm just going to do that with a little bit of snail on the back of my banner and get that placed on my black, and that'll be all ready to go. All right, so now that this is pretty dry, now I am going to put color wash on the flowers here, and with these I am going to be more careful because this is a part of my card front, and so it would show. So I'm going to carefully go around the edges on this. And gonna dab off my brush here. For this can be almost dry. You know, I am not very happy with this at all. I'm going to bring this up, you can see. It didn't let it dry long enough. So this has feathered. I hope you can see that if I bring it all the way up to the camera. It's just sort of bled a little bit away from the image. So I'm going to cut another piece and redo that piece, and I will be back in a flash. I am back, and what I ended up doing was I re-stamped this and then colored it before I put the color wash on. And once I stamped it, I used my heat tool to dry the black ink first. I didn't have this problem with the other project, so I'm a little curious about why this went. I guess maybe I just got more water on it than I did on the other one. But I dried it, the black ink first, then I painted the color on the flowers with my water brush, and then I dried it. So that's where I am. So I'm just going to clean off my water brush here, and I'm going to go back to the crumb cake ink and put my color wash down on this now that it is completely dry. Let me put a little bit more ink in that lid. I'm going to push all of that up and put more water down because I want a very pale color wash. And so I'm going to dry my brush a little bit, and I am just going to put a little bit of the brown here just around the flowers and around the stems here. There, I think that's more than enough, and there's nothing now to bleed. So I'll go ahead and show you then what we need to do next. So these are the flowers that we stamped and colored earlier, and what I'm going to do is just fussy cut out a flower here. I'm just showing you what I'm doing, and I have pre-cut a few out, so I have some that I can go to here, but we'll cut one on camera so that you can see exactly what I'm doing. And I am cutting this right up to the black on these. I'm not leaving any white space around. Okay, and then what I did to avoid any white space being around the edge on this is that I did use my black marker to kind of go over the edge. And I would say always, I learned this the hard way, color from your pen being not facing the color, but away from the color. That way, if you happen to slip, you'll slip on the back and you won't ruin what you've already colored. So there we go. And there is one cut out, and I've actually cut out quite a few of them, probably more than I need. But I'm going to now work on this panel. All right, so what I did was I used some mini dimensionals and I used some glue dots. And what I did for this process is that the mini glue dot on this one raises this particular petal up pretty high relative to the rest of the things on the card. So I only used one where I raised it up that high. And let's see, is this the right one? No, it's not. It's this panel that we're using. Okay. All right, and so what I'm going to do is I'm going to set a couple of flowers around on this one. So I'm going to set the one on the bottom to go first. And I'm doing that because I want to raise it, but not by much. So what I'm doing is I'm using some glue dots, and this is a technique to raise whatever it is you're putting on your project a little bit, but not as much as a dimensional. And that is to stack a couple of glue dots on top of one another. So I'm putting down 2 glue dots here in the right place to hold my piece in place. And then I'm going to take a second glue dot and lay it on top of the first ones that I've put down. There's a total of 4 glue dots on that particular piece. Now I'm going to take that piece and I'm going to set it in place right here to make that flower a little bit bigger. And you'll see there is some dimension. It's not flat, but it's not raised as much as a dimensional. Then, let's see, I put additional one right in here because I wanted this particular flower to be pretty good sized, and this one I just laid down with 2 glue dots so that it would be a little bit flatter. And you can make this flower as big as you want. You could keep building it and you could make this whole top one a very giant flower. But I wanted to put that one like that. And then I am going to use a couple of mini dimensionals on this one. And I thought this one was fun to have just be a little bit bigger. So there is actually quite a large flower there between the one that's stamped down, the one we put on glue dots, and this one on dimensionals. Then this one has got one on dimensionals, and then we will put one down here for this flower, and on this one I'm going to put that on a couple of glue dots again. Now then, I am going to put this panel together here, and I'm going to add some snail to the back of this panel and attach it to the black. And then this panel, I'm going to do the same thing. Going to put some snail along the edges here, a little bit in the back, and I'm going to center this on this piece. There we go. All right. Now then, on our card base that we have prepared here, move some of these things out of the way, and we'll use these again in just a minute for the inside of the card. Now then, this piece is going to be centered on here, and again, I'm laying this down flat because these flowers have enough dimension on them that I don't think I want any more. So I am centering this piece on the front of my card. There we go. And then this is the piece that we have all ready to go. And I am going to put some regular dimensionals on the back of this. All right, now to the front of this, we need to add rhinestones. So I think I might use some rhinestones that are a little bit bigger on this one. And that rhinestone is mostly on that top piece. And then I can create the center of that flower by where I put my rhinestone. And the same thing with this. I think that's just lovely. Very, very pretty. Now, when you get to this one, it is pretty boldly up on those dimensionals, and you could easily do that on a couple of the glue dots and would raise it up. In fact, maybe on that one you would do 3 so that you would get it a little bit higher and maybe not be quite as high as this is on a dimensional. Okay, so on to the inside of the card, and what I have for the inside of the card is I have another panel of this beautiful paper, which I'm going to set in place right on the inside edge of this card, right in here, not getting it too close to the fold so that the card can close without being impeded. And then this piece is just a little bit smaller than a normal quarter panel here. And again, I'm just going to put that in place with some snail here, being mindful of my borders. I'm going to bring it right out to the edge and then have the borders at the top and the bottom match. There we go. And then what I did on this one is I put together another combination of these flowers here to make one more flower for the inside. And I just put it down with a little bit of snail. So, and then I, instead of using a rhinestone, because that does lift the flower up quite a bit for mailing, I have these metal enamel dots. And one of the nice features of these enamel dots is they're pretty flat. And so I'm just going to take one that mimics the rhinestone on the front, and this is a silver one, and I will put that down on the flower, and now it's not as bulky. In fact, you can barely feel it. So that is the card project for today. Thank you so much for stopping by my YouTube channel today. I do so appreciate it. Despite the problems that we had here, what I would say is make sure on this front panel, as you paint and stamp, that in between layers that you just make sure that your panel is good and dry, and I used my heat tool to make absolutely sure, and that would be one way to ensure that this is as dry as you want it to be. So again, that's it for me. Now everything that's here can be pre-ordered on my website, www.lbedinger.stampinup.net. And this is part of the Share What You Love suite, which is the things that are available for pre-order right now through the end of the month. It is such a beautiful suite. And I'll bring back and show the last card that I did on this suite, and I will end up having 4 or 5 different ones, and they're just gorgeous. In fact, I used a little bit of this same paper. So this is the one I did this, just the most recent video. So you get an idea of what you might be able to do with the various colors in this suite. And so there we go. That's the last 2 projects, but this is the project for today. And let's see, the prize draw for this month is the 5 in-color ink pads and the matching markers. So if you don't already have a demonstrator, a Stampin' Up! Demonstrator, I'd love to be your demonstrator, and or you could join my team. In any case, I'll be back soon with more projects and more cards. Bye!